Have you ever truly stopped to consider what paradise actually looks like? Chances are you picture clouds, angels playing harps, and eternal rest. But what if I told you that this is just one option, and a rather dull one at that? What if in one paradise you had to fight to the death every single day, and in another, eternal youth turned out to be a terrifying trap? Today, we're embarking on a journey through 7 of the most incredible and little-known concepts of heaven from cultures around the world. Buckle up, because after this video, your idea of the afterlife will never be the same. Are you absolutely sure you know where you want to go? The idea of the afterlife is as old as time itself. Since the first human looked up at the stars and pondered eternity, we've been trying to figure out what awaits us beyond that final threshold. Every culture, every civilization has created its own unique map of the post-mortem world, its own essential guidebook to the unknown. And these maps reflected not only their deepest fears, but also their most cherished dreams. For some, paradise was simply an extension of earthly life, just without the sickness and worry. For others, it was a place of absolute spiritual merging with the universe. And for a third group, it wasn't a place at all, but a state of being. Understanding these varied concepts is key to understanding entire peoples, their values, their hopes, and what they considered the ultimate good. So let's discard the stereotypes and take a look at the astonishing worlds human imagination has created. We begin our journey in ancient Egypt in a place known as the Field of Reeds, or Aru. This wasn't just paradise, it was the ultimate, idealized copy of the Nile Valley. Imagine fertile lands where the harvest was always abundant, the rivers teemed with fish, and the weather was eternally perfect. But before anyone could enter, they had to pass perhaps the most brutal assessment in history, the weighing of the heart. Your heart was placed upon one side of the great scales and balanced against the feather of Mayat, the goddess of truth. If your heart, heavy with sin and wrongdoing, tipped the balance past that lightweight feather, the trial was over. Your soul would be instantly devoured by the creature Amit, a truly terrifying hybrid of a crocodile, a lion, and a hippopotamus. This was true final death, utter annihilation, and complete oblivion. For the ancient Egyptians, who were obsessed with securing eternal life, this was the absolute worst possible fate. If you had lived righteously, your heart would prove to be lighter than a feather. Congratulations, you passed the test. Now, an eternity in the fields of Aru awaited you. But what exactly was the plan for eternity? Well, here's the interesting part. No loafing around. You were expected to continue the same tasks you performed on Earth. Ploughing, sowing and harvesting. That might not sound like the most heavenly prospect, but there was a crucial difference. All the labour was light and pleasant, and the harvest was 3 times greater than usual. Moreover, wealthy Egyptians brought special servant figures, called Ushapti, into their tombs. These figures were meant to perform all the heavy labour on their behalf, so eternity could actually be spent enjoying hunting, fishing, feasting and board games. It was a heaven of earthly pleasures, purified of suffering and toil. The core idea was extremely practical, eternal life, but with a massive upgrade and excellent outsourcing. Now let's turn our attention to the cold north and the fierce Vikings. Their concept of the afterlife was far more complicated. In fact, they had at least 2 versions of paradise, and neither one promised eternal rest. The most famous, of course, is Valhalla, the great hall of Odin. Only half of the warriors who fell in battle were admitted here. They were personally chosen by the Valkyries, the shield maidens who descended upon the fields of conflict. Entry into Valhalla was the highest honour a Viking could achieve. It was a massive hall, thatched with shields, where spears served as the rafters, and the life there was every warrior's dream. Every day they would go out to the fields and fight each other to the death. But every evening they would miraculously resurrect, gather around the great table, and feast on the meat of the boar, Sehrimnir, who also came back to life every morning, washing it all down with the intoxicating mead milk of the goat Heidrun. It sounds less like eternal rest, and more like an endless heavy metal festival crossed with gladiator games. But what became of the other half of the fallen warriors? And where did others, like women, go? For them, there was another place. Folkvang, the field of the people, the realm of the beautiful goddess Freya. In fact, she had the first choice of the fallen. Only those she left behind went to Odin. Much less is known about life in Folkvang, but by all accounts it was just as honourable and pleasant. But here is the crucial point. Neither Valhalla nor Folkvang was the final destination. They were, in essence, training grounds. All these warriors, known as the Einherjar, were required by the gods for the ultimate battle, Ragnarok. On the day of the world's end, they were meant to march out of Valhalla's gates and fight alongside Odin against the forces of chaos. So, the Viking concept of paradise was never about eternal rest. It was about endless preparation for the final conflict. Quite the motivation, wouldn't you say? But now, let's take a trip to sunny Greece. The Greeks were highly pragmatic people, and they believed that for most ordinary souls, death didn't offer much to look forward to. Ordinary souls were sent to the realm of Hades, specifically to the dreary asphodel meadows. This was a grey, joyless place where they drifted aimlessly, mere shades stripped of memory and emotion. It wasn't hell and it wasn't punishment. It was simply eternal boredom and oblivion. But for the select few, for great heroes like Achilles or Menelaus, there was a special corner of the underworld, Elysium, or the Elysian Fields. This was a true paradise island, located on the western edge of the world, where eternal spring reigned supreme. There was no harsh snow or heavy rain. Instead, a constant, light, refreshing breeze always drifted in from the ocean. You could essentially imagine Elysium as an exclusive, members-only club for the greatest heroes and the favourites of the gods. Elysium represented the epitome of the idealised leisure enjoyed by a Greek aristocrat. The righteous spent their days in deep conversation, engaging in physical training, listening to music, and basking in eternal light. They were completely free of worries, simply revelling in their well-deserved rest. Gaining entry, however, was extraordinarily difficult. One had to be more than just virtuous. They were required to have achieved extraordinary feats or possess divine ancestry. The concept of Elysium later evolved, heavily influenced by various philosophical schools. Entry was no longer strictly limited to heroes. It was extended to those who had been initiated into specific mysteries and who maintained a truly righteous life. Nevertheless, it remained a realm reserved for a highly exclusive group, clearly underscoring the inherent elitism of Greek thought, even when considering the afterlife. Contrast this with the Islamic conception of paradise known as Jannah. It isn't a single location, but rather an intricate system of multiple levels, often cited as 7 or 8. The more righteous a person's life on earth, the higher the tier of paradise they are granted. The very highest level, Firdaus, is located directly beneath the throne of Allah. In the Quran, Jannah is depicted as a magnificent garden, abundant with cool shade and lush trees, a description particularly poignant for people living in arid desert environments. There, rivers flow with pure water, with milk that never spoils, with wine that causes no intoxication, and with crystallized honey. This imagery represents absolute sensual enjoyment and eternal abundance, the ultimate reward for earthly sacrifice and unwavering faith. Imagine an oasis that stretches into infinity. The residents of paradise are clothed in silks and brocades, adorned with jewellery of gold and pearls. They recline on couches inlaid with precious gems, attended by eternally youthful servants. They are offered readily available celestial fruits and the finest cuts of poultry, everything they could possibly desire. Paradise is free from idle talk, falsehoods, or sin. There, people know neither weariness, illness, nor the burden of old age. Yet it is crucial to understand that these vivid, physical descriptions are not merely the promise of an eternal holiday resort. They serve as a metaphor describing a state of absolute bliss and ultimate happiness. It is an attempt to convey the inexpressible through the limitations of human language. This is often illustrated through calligraphic depictions and miniatures portraying the gardens of paradise. Beyond the physical delights, the ultimate reward in Jannah is spiritual bliss. This is the chance to behold Allah Himself, the absolute pinnacle of happiness for any true believer. It represents a profound state of complete serenity, harmony, and intimacy with the Creator. Thus, the Islamic concept of paradise is multifaceted, encompassing both corporeal and spiritual recompense. It offers profound comfort and hope, demonstrating that a life of righteousness and true faith will be richly rewarded. Crucially, this is not a state of static rest, but rather a dynamic, ever-evolving condition of joy and profound understanding of the divine essence. The powerful contrast between the vivid, almost tangible descriptions and the deep underlying spiritual significance makes this concept one of the most comprehensive and well-developed in all world religions. Now let's take a sharp pivot and turn our attention to Buddhism. The perspective here is radically different. For a Buddhist, the ultimate goal isn't reaching paradise. Quite the opposite, the goal is to break free from the entire cycle of rebirth, samsara, which encompasses both heavenly and hellish realms. Yes, Buddhist cosmology certainly includes heavens, known as Deva Lokas. These are magnificent realms where beings who have accumulated significant positive karma enjoy exceptionally long and pleasurable lives. Picture stunning landscapes, celestial music, and every desire instantly fulfilled. But there is one crucial problem. It is temporary. Even the longest tenure in the highest heaven eventually comes to an end. Once that positive karma is fully spent, the being is reborn once more, potentially landing in a far less pleasant world, such as the human realm, or even hell. For this reason, paradise in Buddhism is often viewed not as a final reward, but rather as a gilded cage, pleasant perhaps, but ultimately still a prison. The ultimate goal in Buddhism is nirvana, but it's crucial to understand this. Nirvana isn't a place. It's not some kind of heavenly palace or a garden of paradise. Instead, it's a state defined by the complete extinguishing of passions, the cessation of suffering, freedom from the ego, and emerging with ultimate reality. Describing nirvana in words is nearly impossible simply because it exists beyond the boundaries of our ordinary understanding and language. It's like trying to describe colour to someone who has been blind since birth. It is neither existence nor non-existence. It is the final awakening, the realisation of the true nature of things. Visually, we can try to convey this using the image of a still, smooth surface of water, or the gentle flickering of a dying candle. Nirvana is absolute peace, but it's not dull or empty. Instead, it is filled with ultimate knowledge and profound bliss, completely free from all attachments. However, not all schools of Buddhism are so rigid. In some traditions, such as Pure Land Buddhism, which is immensely popular across East Asia, there is a clear concept of a paradise that practitioners strive for. This is the Pure Land, known as Sukhavati, created by the Buddha Amitabha. It is a beautiful world, utterly free from suffering, sickness, and obstacles to spiritual practice. Precious jewel-laden trees grow there, marvellous birds sing, and the very ground is made of gold and silver. But the goal of reaching Sukhavati is not merely eternal rest. Sukhavati functions as the ideal spiritual university where practitioners can quickly and easily achieve enlightenment under the direct guidance of Amitabha himself. Entry is gained simply by sincerely trusting in Amitabha and repeatedly reciting his name. It is often described as a spiritual cheat code for those who find the path to nirvana too challenging in the complexities of our earthly existence. So, it is not the ultimate destination, but rather the perfect place to prepare for the final spiritual exam. Let's now journey to the Emerald Hills of Ireland and delve into the world of Celtic mythology. The Celts had their own distinct concept of paradise, known as Tir na Nog, the land of eternal youth. It wasn't an afterlife in the traditional sense, but rather a parallel dimension, a magical island shrouded in mist, hidden from mortal eyes somewhere far out in the Western Ocean. Tir na Nog knew no sickness, no aging, and no death. Eternal spring reigned there. Trees were perpetually heavy with fruit, and the music and feasting never ceased. This realm was inhabited by the Tuatha De Danann, the beautiful and powerful Aoside, or, as we might call them today, the elves. It was a world defined by magic, beauty, and unending joy. Visually, imagine the most idealised Irish landscape, bathed in an ethereal light. Every now and then, mortal heroes would find their way to Tír na nÓg, the land of the young. Typically, they were lured by an enchanting fairy queen, who, having fallen for the hero, would offer him eternal life and endless love in her magical realm. While this sounds like a dream come true, this fairy tale had a truly dark undercurrent. Time itself behaved strangely in Tír na nÓg. A hero might spend what felt like mere years in her presence, yet back on Earth, centuries had swept by. His friends and family would long be dust, his kingdom withered into ruin. But the darkest twist came if he ever chose to return. The instant his foot touched his native soil, the crushing weight of all those forgotten centuries would instantly claim him, reducing him to dust. Tír na nÓg is a paradise, but one from which no mortal can truly return. It is a beautiful yet deadly snare, a perfect symbol that immortality and eternal youth are often not a blessing, but a profound curse, severing you from your own world and the very essence of human experience. Finally, let's turn our attention to one of the most ancient civilizations, Mesopotamia, home to the Sumerians and Akkadians. Their concept of paradise, Dilmun, is vastly different from everything we've discussed so far. Dilmun wasn't a human afterlife. Rather, it was the dwelling place of the gods, a pristine, earthly paradise. Sumerian myths describe Dilmun as a pure, bright and undefiled land, untouched by sickness, death or old age. There, the lion did not slay the lamb, nor did the wolf carry off the sheep. It was a place of absolute harmony, where even the cry of the raven or the sound of weeping was absent. The gods spent their time there in perfect bliss. It was a kind of Garden of Eden, but notably one that predated humanity. Visually, you could imagine it as a sun-drenched, flowering land teeming with peaceful animals. Access to Dilmun was strictly forbidden to mortals. The only human ever granted immortality and the right to live there was Ziusudra, the Sumerian equivalent of the biblical Noah. He received this gift from the gods for surviving the Great Flood, but this was a singular exception. For all other human beings, the path led to Kur, a bleak, dusty underworld, where the shades of the dead subsisted on clay and drank murky water. Thus, for the Sumerians, there was an immense gulf between the world of the gods and the world of mortals. Paradise existed, but it was not meant for us. This entire concept reflects a remarkably pessimistic view of human destiny. It underscores the fragility and finite nature of human life, set against the backdrop of the eternal and serene existence of the gods. It was a paradise that mortals could only observe from afar, but never truly enter. Let's take a step back now and look at these concepts from a bird's-eye view. What are their common threads and what sets them apart? The Egyptian fields of Aru are essentially an idealized continuation of earthly life, a reward for righteousness, where the chief virtues are order and stability. It's a paradise built for the farmer and the aristocrat alike. The Greek Elysium, conversely, functions as an elite club for heroes, a heaven reserved for the select few. It strongly emphasizes the value of personal achievement and glory. It is a well-deserved rest after a difficult yet celebrated life. Crucially, both of these paradises continue and enhance earthly existence, maintaining social structure and familiar daily routines. This demonstrates that for these cultures, the ultimate good was simply the continuation of everything they cherished on earth. But stripped of suffering and hardship, these are truly human and deeply relatable dreams. Let's pivot to the Scandinavian concept, Valhalla. This represents an entirely different approach. Here, paradise isn't a place of rest. It's a training ground for the final battle. The supreme virtues are martial prowess, loyalty to one's leader, and a willingness to die for a righteous cause. This is a dynamic afterlife bursting with energy and purpose. It perfectly mirrors the Vikings' militarized society and their fatalistic view of destiny. Then there is the Celtic Tír na nÓg, the land of the young. This concept is pure escapism. a flight from reality into a realm of eternal youth and profound magic. However, this escape comes at a cost, the severing of ties to the human world. It speaks to a deep longing for the mystical, but simultaneously warns against the peril of becoming completely detached from reality. Ultimately, these concepts demonstrate that paradise might not just be a reward, but also a trial, a challenge, or even a hidden trap. The Islamic Jannah and the Buddhist Nirvana are much more abstract spiritual ideas. Jannah is viewed as a multi-tiered system, where reward corresponds to merit and deeds. Crucially, the ultimate bliss is not defined by physical pleasures, but by achieving spiritual closeness to God. This highlights the central importance of faith, justice, and spiritual hierarchy within Islam. Buddhism, however, goes even further, completely rejecting the value of any place whatsoever. Nirvana represents an exit from the system, total liberation from all forms of existence, no matter how pleasant or desirable those forms might be. It is often described as a paradise for the philosopher, for those seeking ultimate truth, rather than mere consolation or comfort. This contrast reveals the vastly different ways humanity has sought to answer that fundamental question. What is true happiness? Is it the continuation of life, its transformation, or perhaps the complete and absolute liberation from it? Ultimately, each of these 7 heavens serves as a mirror reflecting the values, fears and dreams of the culture that conceived it. The Egyptians dreamed of an eternal, ordered Nile. The Vikings imagined endless battle and feasting. The Greeks pictured an exclusive retreat for heroes. The desert Arabs longed for shaded gardens and cool rivers. The Celts sought a magical island of eternal youth. Buddhists aspired to liberation from the very concept of place, and the Sumerians humbly accepted that paradise was simply not meant for them. By studying these concepts, we aren't just examining potential futures, but rather the deep-seated codes of the human psyche. We see the profound differences in how the words happiness, reward, and eternity can be interpreted, and that perhaps is the most compelling aspect of this entire journey. So just like that, in a matter of minutes, we've journeyed through 7 wildly different versions of paradise. From the fields of Egypt, where your heart is weighed on the scales, to Valhalla, where death is little more than a lunch break. From the exclusive club reserved for Greek heroes, to the state of Nirvana, which isn't even a physical place at all. What we've realized is that paradise is far from a universal concept. Instead, it is always a powerful reflection of what people value most in life: order, valor, serenity, knowledge, or eternal youth. And perhaps the most crucial takeaway is this: heaven, or paradise, isn't so much a destination as it is a compass, a guiding force that showed entire civilizations how to live correctly right here, right now. Thank you so much for watching this video all the way to the end. If you found this interesting, please make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any future journeys into the world of myth and history. Now I have a question for you. Which of these 7 heavens would you most want to find yourself in? Or maybe your culture has its own unique vision of the afterlife that we didn't mention. Let us know in the comments below. We'd truly love to read your thoughts.